Mick Wallace, how are you today?
I'm fine.
We're here today to talk about yourself a little bit. I just want to know a bit about your background. First of all, you came from a family of 12. Massive competition in the family, I'd imagine, when you were growing up.
I never thought of it like that. I was only visiting my mother yesterday. She's 95. She's still alive. So my father died young. Being part of a family of 12, obviously I don't know what it's like to be part of a smaller family. It was pretty hectic, probably, all right, yeah. You know, your mother doesn't have the same chance to spoil you as she would if she only had two.
No.
And our father was, he was tough, but a good man. I'm very fond of him myself, and still miss him. Even though he died when I was only 26, he died of cancer. He was 66 years of age. He had a big influence on my life, but he was tough. By God, he was...
that was the old Irish way, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I mean, we'd have had to get up at 6:30 in the morning, every morning bar Christmas Day.
Yeah.
If there was work to be done before we went to school, when we were in national school, if we're, you know, off school in the summers, winter, Easter, I was always work.
Yeah.
There was a huge work culture there.
Yeah.
But I was probably, they'd probably say I was probably a bit madder than the others.
Really, you were the wild card?
In some ways. And I left home to go work in America when I was 17.
That's very young.
That was a big move. I had no papers or anything, but I managed to falsify papers in America, and as you do. And I actually worked under the name of a fellow called Watty French, who was, he had a social security number, and I pretended to be him, and I had to invent certain papers to pull it off. But anyway, I got work in the factory making Christmas decorations in Boston eventually, and I ended up on the buildings, which was actually through Gaelic football. These guys, these Irish guys, found out that I was with another guy. The other guy with me, and I was a better footballer than I was. But we ended up playing with Gaelic football over there, and we got work on the buildings, which was better than the factory work.
Better pay.
Yeah, and but anyway, my plan was to go to South America.
Yeah.
And we bought a car then for $500.
What kind of car was it?
Oh God, I forget the make of it, but it was as long as a house, right? It was so big that it was cheap, right? Because it was a gas guzzler, right?
Yeah.
And we drove it as far as Panama, and the road ended, right?
Okay.
There's a Pan-American highway that's been designed many times, and the road was paid for 3 times, right?
Yeah.
But the guys who shipped the cars, they keep shooting anyone that tries to build it, and by then, and are paying off fellas not to build it and that kind of thing. I don't believe it's built yet. But anyway, we had to sell the car. We sold the car for $200.
And did you hitchhike from there then?
It was all hitchhiking from then. In fact, we couldn't sell it in Panama. I had to go back to Costa Rica, to San Jose, and sell it there. Got $200 for it. That was $100 each. We were out of money.
Yeah.
We had, all our money was gone. So we flew to Cartagena in northern Colombia. That's where the Spaniards used to bring their silver and gold when they were plundering South America at that time. It's funny, I mean, a lot of people don't really understand what happened in South America over the years, but what the likes of the Spaniards did out there, and other European countries later, it was just unbelievable. It was genocide. Like, I mean, the Spaniards killed about 30 million people in pursuit of gold and silver, and done untold destruction. But anyway, we went to Cartagena. $60 for the flight, so we had $40 each left, right? And the first weekend we landed in Cartagena, the festival was on, the carnival.
Yeah.
Right? The carnival in South America is an amazing thing. Right? It goes on for 3 days, and everybody, all rules and regulations go out the window, and everyone goes mad, right? So I was at home in Cartagena. So
you were in an ideal world.
And we things were so cheap, right? A pint bottle of beer was what was our 5 pence at the time. We were able to get 20 of them for £1.
Wow, so you could get a lot out of your
So anyway,
£40.
we only had $40, right? So, and there was $2.50 in the pound. So that was $2.50 gone on 20 bottles. But anyway, spent the weekend there, and next day I said, right, okay, let's go. He says, the fellow with me, Pat Power is his name. Yeah. He says, where are you going? I said, I'm going hitchhiking. Oh, I'm not hitchhiking in this country. He says, it's too dangerous, right? And I says, we haven't the money to go down the other way. And I says, we won't meet the people if we don't hitchhike. So he says, no way, I'm not hitchhiking. Right, says I, good luck, right? Yeah. And we say goodbye. So I had an aunt, my father's sister, that was a Franciscan nun, working in the mountains in Bolivia. So I had a target and I wanted to go see her.
You wanted to get there.
So it took me about 3 weeks to hitchhike to Bolivia from Cartagena. And it was an incredible experience. I spent 5 months altogether in Latin America, and it had a big impact on how I thought about the world. Listen, I was kind of
exposed, young.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd have been reading. I was a big reader, and I'd been reading a lot of stuff long before I went anyway. And I was conscious of the fact that the Americans were colonialists in South America. Well, what was originally colonialism developed into what's called financial imperialism, and it's as rampant still today. Yeah. But so I was very politically minded anyway before I went down. But obviously, South America experience had a huge influence on me.
Yeah.
I was in Bolivia when there was a miners' strike. Okay. The Americans controlled all the mines. Yeah. They would have put Banzer was in power at the time. He was the president of Bolivia, and the Americans were the ones who put him there. And so he done everything to facilitate the American miners. But they were getting $1 a day at the time to work in the mines, right? And there was a strike organised, and the strike went on
by the miners.
By the miners, and the strike went on for about 2 months. And eventually, the government couldn't handle the strike, and they got the American Rangers who were based in Panama to come down, and they just shot all the ringleaders and put an end to the strike. But I was in Bolivia when that happened, and I was in South America when Allende was killed by the Americans in Chile. Okay. I wasn't in Chile, but I was in Latin America at the time.
It must have been turbulent over there then.
It was an incredible place, yeah. I know I ended up at the end of a gun on 3 occasions. I was very, very lucky not to be killed, yeah. But anyway, there's a big story behind each of them, but I done well to survive anyway.
Yeah.
But, you know, I had no money, and...
I suppose naivety was on your side at that stage.
I suppose being so young, I was fearless.
Ignorance is bliss, as they say.
I really didn't do fear, which that helped me, you know.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience, and I never forgot it, you know. Yeah. And in fact, one of the times I was in Buenos Aires. I ended up in Buenos Aires, and I was sleeping on the streets near the docks. I was trying to get work on a boat back to Europe.
Yeah.
I actually failed. I just could not get work on the boats. You had to be kind of from the only boats that took people that weren't of their nationality were the Greeks, and so my best hope was getting on a Greek boat, but I didn't manage it anyway. But
how did you get home in the end then?
Well, what I did was, but when I was in Buenos Aires, I actually got involved in a group called the Tucumara. Yeah. They were a revolutionary group from Uruguay, and Perón was in power in Argentina at the time. He was a right-wing leader, and they were organising protests against Perón, and I joined them, right, and I used to be handing out leaflets, right, and this night the Peronist supporters came in and just shot the fella that was doing the talking in the head. Just like that. It was two yards away from me.
Oh my God.
And then they just walked off. Police were watching and never even done anything about it, right. But anyway, it was a pretty mad place at the time. I rang an Irish guy in Boston that I had ended up working for before I left Boston, and I asked him would he buy me a ticket from Rio to Miami.
Yeah.
And so he said he would.
He must have took a liking to you.
So it took me just under 2 weeks to get to Rio from Buenos Aires hitchhiking. and then I flew to Miami. I remember it was about 90 degrees when I was leaving Brazil, and I got out of the airport in Miami, and I just walked into the nearest field to sleep, and it was about 65 degrees. I hitchhiked about 600 miles that day, and 1 o'clock in the morning I got out on the motorway, and there was I just slept in the grass margin beside the motorway. I was at an intersection, and the car was going one way, and I needed to go up the east side.
Did you have a tent or a sleeping bag?
I had a sleeping bag.
Okay.
Yeah, and I woke up and there was frost in my bag.
Oh.
And by the time I got to Boston, there was a foot of snow on the ground.
Okay.
So anyway, I went back to work in Boston, paid your man back, and eventually went home.
Very good. You obviously have a very good immune system then to be able to get through all that.
Yeah.
You never got sick along the way?
No, I don't get sick. I haven't been in bed sick since my first son was born 38 years ago.
Touch wood.
Anyway. No, but my mother always said that we had stomachs like pig trucks because of the way she reared us. Brought up on a small farm, and they were literally mixing in the dirt.
Yeah, which is good too.
Yeah, it builds up a good immune system.
Yeah. So when you came home, then when did you decide to go to UCD to study to be a teacher? Was that your parents?
Yeah, I wasn't pushed about being a teacher, but I wanted an education. My father wanted me to stay at home and run the business, and I said no. I said I want to get an education, so went to UCD, and I paid for myself by working part-time on the buildings. I told my father if I couldn't do it myself, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I was a little bit independent, and
stubborn, one might say.
No, more independent than stubborn. But anyway, I ended up did history, English, and philosophy, and went back in fourth year and done an MA qualifier in philosophy, history of philosophy, and went back a few years later and done the teaching degree. But when I qualified as a teacher, the pay was very poor. I mean, teacher pay is still kind of poor. It starts poor and it gets good if you stay in it forever. And so people that are burnt out are encouraged to stay there because the pay has got good.
Yeah.
Whereas now they have it back ways they have. I mean, they should pay them well at the start. And they should encourage them, when they burn out, they should encourage them to go do something else.
Let the younger ones
So anyway, I went working on the building sites,
Yeah.
and I was able to get more for pushing a wheelbarrow than I could for teaching. So I ended up in construction then, and learned the different trades, got involved in steel fixing, and then I did block laying, brick laying, then I got involved in carpentry. Kind of did everything except plastering and electrical and plumbing.
Yeah.
I was able to do everything else with a building.
A jack of all trades.
And a master of none.
Yeah.
No, so I mean, I eventually set up my own company as a subcontractor, and I worked as a subcontractor for a good few years, and till eventually I was working for a company that it was actually an old Wallace firm. I was a subcontractor for them, and they got involved in civil engineering work. So I started to do some subcontract work for them. So I learned everything about engineering, civil engineering, on a practical level, and so really I kind of worked my way into being from a practical point of view. I learned to understand civil engineering, and it was more lucrative work than the general construction work. And anyway, I eventually started getting a lot of work from Dublin City Council, and they turned out to be a very good crowd to work for. And I worked for them for years. I had a lot of different projects with them, and fell foul of them in 2002, when I put up the banner, "No to war, no to Nice, no to American terrorism" on a building.
Which I think is very prevalent nowadays, especially.
Yeah, and they told me if I didn't take it down, they wouldn't give me any more work. So I said, I can't take it down. I said I couldn't live with myself if I did.
No.
I went to the High Court and I won the case. I was allowed to leave it up until the referendum on Nice was over. Judge Peter Kelly was the judge. I remember, I'll never forget it. It was a great victory at the time.
Yeah.
The same fella was the judge in the commercial court when he gave ACC Bank a judgment against me in 2011. So it was...
swings and roundabouts.
Yeah.
So is that what spurred your political career, do you reckon? Or were you
listen,
always en route?
My father was very political, and he was actually a mad Fianna Fáil man, right? But thankfully he fell out with him before he died. He didn't approve with the way hot he was taking the party, and so he washed his hands of him a couple of years before he died. Yeah.
I've heard you say you cut your hair before you joined Fianna Fáil. Is that true?
No, there was a fella said to me one day when I went out on my own as a building contractor, and rather than I became a general contractor rather than just a subcontractor. Yeah. And this guy, who was a contracts manager for a big firm that I used to do some work for, and he said to me, Wallace, he says, you're never going to cut it in this game. He says, unless you join Fianna Fáil, cut your hair and buy a suit. And I said, I'm not going to do either of those three things. I said, and I'm still going to make it. You watch.
And so signs on.
That's a long time ago.
And have you bought a suit yet? You obviously haven't cut the hair, but
I wore a suit. I bought a suit for my wedding a long time, actually 40 years ago, over 40 years ago now. But
never since then.
I wore it then to 4 funerals within the space of 2 years. I lost my brother, I lost my father, and 2 people that were close.
That's a tough 2
and
years.
Then never wore a suit again, no.
No, unlucky.
It wasn't that. Never felt comfortable in them.
No.
I don't really like wearing clothes much.
No.
I really don't.
Is there a story behind that one?
I just like the less weight on my body, the better. I move quickly, and I'm always busy, and I just feel more comfortable with less clothes. Yeah,
yeah. So when you were going into politics, then it was your father had kind of inspired you first of all, and you were.
Listen, I mean, most things in life happen almost by accident,
Yeah.
It was February 2011, the election was, and I had often thought about it, and I thought to myself, oh God, it was such a game. I thought to myself, I'd crack up if I was in it,
Yeah.
And obviously, we were still doing a small bit of building, trying to survive against the odds, but we were.
On the timeline, when was this?
Obviously, look at from 2008 on, the company was in trouble. But even in 2010, we thought we'd survive. 2011, I just still thought I might work my way out of it. If the banks had worked with us, we'd have paid them everything. The banks sold our stuff for peanuts and put the residual debt on the people, mostly English people as far as I was concerned. I was mostly involved with foreign banks, Ulster, Bank of Scotland, ACC, and a small bit with AIB. So the majority of my lending would have been with foreign banks. But
it was the country as a whole at the time, though it wasn't just...
just for example, Ulster, I had 40 properties with Ulster Bank, and they said, oh, we want to sell this stuff. And I said, but it doesn't make any sense to sell it. And they said, listen, we just want rid of it. It's contaminating our books. We want it off our books. We're not going to kill you. We'll leave a residual debt of about $500,000 against you, and that could be wiped in time if you cooperate with us. So I told them I'd help them sell them then. So they sold them kind of in my name, but I had 27 apartments on a particular site, and they sold them for 100,000 each to an investment bank of Ulster.
Okay.
They flipped them a year later for 200,000 each, and a vulture fund bought them and flipped them 15 months later for 250 each.
It's a lot of money considering the.
It was all crazy, right? And what it was you had investment funds, vulture funds, being in a position to take advantage of the banks trying to clean up their books, offloading stuff for peanuts, knowing that they didn't have to pick up the tab because the tab was put on the backs of the people, whether it was in Ireland or in England. And or elsewhere, and in America.
And a lot of pressure on the people
And
as well.
actually, I mean, it was crazy. It was one of the craziest things ever happened. I mean, and the austerity that followed here was pure madness.
Yeah.
And I mean,
did you feel like you wanted to help make a change anyway?
well, I mean,
towards
look at, I mean, obviously, I was very interested in society anyway. I mean, the whole football thing here was a societal thing, a community project, and so I was interested in people. I was interested in how society was organised. So you could say, going into politics eventually was kind of a natural progression anyway.
Yeah.
How much difference you can make is always the challenge if you really want to make a difference. And look at people argue till the cows come home as to whether who makes a difference and who doesn't.
I've watched a couple of videos of the Dáil when you were in there. It's, it seems like a tough place to be.
I felt kind of a home in it. I mean, we were fearless and merciless, and we called a spade, and we thrived in it. And we like to think we did make a difference. The place wasn't the same when we left it, you know. Now, whether we can make a difference in Europe is a new challenge, you know.
Yeah, there will be a big cultural difference between everybody in the European Parliament anyway.
It's incredibly different place altogether, right? It bears no resemblance to a national parliament. No. Trying to pull 28 countries together, there's just so many different challenges in each country. And you have a European Commission, European Council and the European Parliament trying to harmonise in such a way while respecting the differences that each country brings. They're trying to harmonise things so that things are done well across the board. But member states will always fight their corner for a better deal.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Ireland is against the harmonisation of corporation tax, whereas I'm actually in favour of it.
Yeah.
Now people say, oh, that'll cost us jobs here, right? Well, I mean, until we harmonise corporation tax and until we deal with tax havens, we will continue to rob the poor countries. The global south has been robbed blind by financial behaviour in the developed north.
Yeah.
And Ireland is part of that. When we allow large corporations to funnel money through this place and charge them bugger all tax, and help them to avoid tax, help them to hide money that are taken from the global south, and that's what we're doing. We're facilitating poverty, sustaining poverty. We're facilitating inequality. But then Ireland deliberately promoted inequality from 2011 to 2016. The Fine Gael Labour government did anyway. By austerity. Austerity was crazy.
Yeah.
It was a very stupid thing to do. It penalised the less well off in order to fix the public finances.
Yeah.
And it was criminal.
Yeah.
And you can see where Labour are today. They're on the floor, and whether the people forget and move on, maybe they will. I mean, Fianna Fáil are probably doing better than most expected at this stage in the polls already, despite where they came from in 2011.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, people do tend to have short memories when it comes to politics.
I think so. Slow learners and short memories.
Yeah. But the established parties like Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Labour that have always run this country, the treatment are very similar, really. The three neoliberal parties, they look after big business better than they look after the people, and that's been the way they've operated, in particular since the arrival of Haughey. It kind of started with him. Fine Gael would have been more right-wing than Fianna Fáil long before that, but Fianna Fáil became much more like them from there on, and Labour, whenever they got into power, were just like them, both of them anyway, you know. Yeah. They were no different from them. They were different in opposition, but not in power. A lot of Irish people, you know, are rightfully disillusioned with politics.
Yeah. Well,
while they're interested in it, they're disillusioned with it because they kind of get the impression that no matter who they put in power, very little changes.
Yeah.
The big people get looked after best, no matter who is pulling the strings. Now, that's true because we never actually had a real left-wing government.
Yeah.
in some countries, like for example in Venezuela, where the Americans have tried to undermine Chavez since he became to power in 1999. They have done everything in their power to undermine the Chavismo project, but they reduced people living in dire poverty from something like 45% down to about 10, which is phenomenal in the space of about 10 years. In Maduro, who's the president now, and who's not a particularly good president, but at the same time, the Americans, it'd be a better place if there was no sanctions. I was out there earlier in the year, but Maduro's government built 2.5 million social housing units in the last 4 years.
Wow.
Imagine if we did anything to colour it here.
You brought that up in the Dáil in 2011, that if we stopped taking away from the homeless and rehabilitated them, or put in more rehabilitation centres.
Look, this country is not well run.
No.
It's an amazing country. It's a great country to live in if you're falling on the right side of the line. Bruce Springsteen has a great line in the song, I think it's in Nebraska, lovely tune, and he says, down here it's all winners and losers, so don't get caught on the wrong side of that line.
No.
And I find Ireland is very much like that as well. When I canvassed in 2016, I was shocked at the poverty in County Wexford, and that didn't grow off the trees. That's a result of government policy.
I think it's becoming worse these days.
I mean, inequality has been rising for the last 20 years in Ireland. The world is less fair now than it was 50 years ago, 60 years ago. Probably the golden era of European politics was post-Second World War. And in that time, those that could afford to pay the most tax did.
Yeah.
And governments invested in housing, in health and education and public transport in a way that they don't do anymore.
No.
And it was a golden era, and big business done well as well. Everybody can do well, and you can treat people well, you can run a country well, you can run a society properly, organised and structured in such a way that, I mean, a government's first priority should be to take best care of those who most need our help.
Do you think it's a
Whereas
fallacy?
we find that it's the opposite that happens.
Do you think it's a fallacy now that we have repealed the 8th and there's an abortion is legal in Ireland now, and gay marriage and all? Do you think that's just a fallacy? Is it just a front, or is it
they were all issues that I campaigned on.
Yeah.
And it was good that they came in. It was really important, right? But at the same time, it's all very well, and those subjects became popular.
Yeah,
right?
with the youth
I can tell you,
yeah.
In 2011, I was actually the second. Billy Kelleher mentioned the word abortion in a secondary manner.
That must have been a massive taboo in
July. I brought up the subject in October or November 2011, and several politicians said to me afterwards, don't say that word in here, don't say that word in here, you'll get into trouble, you're going to be in trouble. I said, I don't give a damn. I said, we're going to start campaigning on this. Right?
Yeah.
And I was being driven by a girl in my office who was very active, and so I'm not taking the credit for it myself. I mean, she put me up to it, and obviously, but look at it. By the time it was voted on, it became hugely popular, and it was brilliant that it came in, and obviously the gay marriage thing. I mean,
it's fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah, but I mean, it's all very well. It doesn't say that now that we're doing everything right, that we're a liberal country, right? We still don't take care of single mothers, and they're pauperised. I mean, the amount of single mothers living in poverty in Ireland is a huge reflection on how badly this country is run.
Yeah. Do you think women's rights haven't really been...
I tell you what, women's rights have improved for those who can afford to get them.
Yeah.
And they haven't.
Have the know-how.
And they haven't for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's the same the world over.
Yeah.
Women are treated very poorly in general in the world today still.
Yeah. And in the Dáil, when you were leaving, I think it could have been your last speech, you explained it as very frustrating and fulfilling in equal measure. You were a bit emotional at it. Did you feel a bit of a sorrow going, or were you just ecstatic to be leaving?
The emotional part was actually, I was thanking 2 doctors that had helped my son. One of my youngest son got cancer, and
very young.
And they operated on him and looked after him over a period of months, and they were amazing. And so I was just giving credit to them at the end of the speech. So I got a little bit of emotion with that. Yeah. Listen, I've been criticised in the papers. A number of journalists have criticised me over the years in the Dáil for crying in there.
I think that's totally human.
I cried several times in the Dáil.
Yeah.
I always went in there determined not to, but couldn't help myself on several occasions because I get emotional about things. But I mean,
just fair.
To be criticised for it, I mean, it doesn't bother me. I couldn't give a damn what they say. I don't. I respect people who earn my respect, and
I feel like if you're crying, you're very you're emotional about it. You're obviously putting your heart and soul into it, so it's fair. It's like Greta Thunberg at the moment. Like, a lot of people seem very intimidated by her emotion or by her sense of power for such a young girl about climate change as well.
Yeah, look, I mean, sometimes others can be intimidated by someone being emotional sometimes too. Yeah. I often think that the journalists that were critical of me for being emotional were actually intimidated by my emotion.
You definitely don't see it as a sense of weakness. I don't see it as a sense of weakness. I feel like
what's weakness? I mean, power is something that comes from inside you, and not something doesn't come through money. I would have brought a certain sense of power to how I dealt with the political issues, not because of anything in particular, more so than just an inner belief in what I was saying and doing. It's something that comes from inside you, and if you just if you stick to what you believe in and fuck the begrudgers, just keep going and do as you see fit. Yeah, it's the only way.
And what have you up your sleeve for the European Parliament now? Have you any? What's the agenda?
Look, it's been absolutely hectic since I went over there. Right, I've rented an apartment over there. Now, obviously, I work with Claire Daly. She's rented an apartment over there as well. We don't come home every weekend, obviously.
That must be tough to be travelling now.
The travelling would kill you, and the Strasbourg element is madness. Right, the Strasbourg is 1 week a month, but the challenge in the place itself is incredible. If you're to do it right, and we're obviously determined to do it right, it's going to require a lot more work than we ever even did in the Dáil. It's a huge challenge if we're going to make a difference. We will be ruthless and relentless and merciless about our work, and it's a huge platform to be allowed to operate on. You're challenging the head person in Europe, whether it's for an Iranian delegation, or whether it's for looking after the oceans, or whether it's farming. You're dealing with the head people in Europe the whole time, and you have an opportunity to challenge them. Yeah. It's a big pool with 750 members, but those numbers don't intimidate us. We know that we'll buy and sell most of them when we find our feet. Yeah. And we are determined to make an impact and to make a difference that will serve the people of Ireland and Europe better. Am I sure that we're going to be successful? I can't be, but all I can be sure of is that we'll work very hard to try.
You're very optimistic anyway.
Well, I mean, listen, I think it's a big challenge and it's going to be difficult, but we won't be found wanting for trying.
Yeah. You're a big advocate for climate change at the moment?
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, the way the world has been organised and run is unsustainable. Money was put before the interest of the planet, the same as put before the interest of the ordinary people. But inequality and poverty, climate change, financial imperialism, how big business operates, how poorly governments are organised, how poorly societies are organised, is all connected.
Yeah.
We're not going to deal with climate change and deal with the challenges of the environment unless we deal with inequality and poverty the world over, and make the world a fairer place and do things right rather than just do things in the interest of profit.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
You're dead right. And your love of pink, that's a big issue with you. Did that come from the Wexford Youths where we are today, or was it?
Well, I mean, I introduced the pink into the Wexford Youths. In fact, the first year we wore all black because I managed the Wexford under-18 county team for 21 years, and that's where the Wexford Youths grew out of. And I had them in all black for years. Right?
Yeah.
Black is a powerful colour. It's intimidating. Right?
Dominant.
Now, pink is not seen as being a powerful colour, right? Pink is seen as different, and I got the idea of pink from the Palermo football jersey in Italy.
Yeah.
And it was a challenge to macho.
Yeah.
It was a challenge to a lot of ideas that developed and became around to be popular later on. And I remember.
Did you struggle to get the lads to wear it?
We were in pre-season training for the second season, right? And I had this jersey. I got O'Neill's to make me a jersey, a sample one, right? Yeah. I walked in with the jersey, and at the end of the training
one night,
I was managing the team at the time. No, I carried it in, right? I said, "What do you think?" And every one of them says, "There's no fucking way are we going to wear that," right? "No, we're not." And I said, "If you want to play for the Wexford Youths, you want to wear this, whether you like it or not." So that's where the pink started.
I bet you they love it now.
Ah, yeah. It became a great colour.
Yeah.
No, we were the first football side. I'd say that we're the first sports team of any colour or creed to wear pink in Ireland. But it was great. And,
I think it suits.
And then obviously I started wearing pink myself more, and of course when I went to the Dáil then I wore a lot of pink. And I mean, the debate about my dress in the Dáil is the greatest load of nonsense, right? Yeah. But we would say that we got more people interested in politics by being different, by talking straight, by dressing normal, dressing like the ordinary people, even if they weren't all wearing pink. You know, I mean, what does it matter what anyone wears? I mean, I don't give out about the fellas who wear the suits.
No.
They can wear suits if they like, and they can wear the same suit into the Dáil for 2 weeks without washing it, for all I care, as long as it don't smell. I wash every day, and my clothes, I change my clothes on a daily basis, right? But I mean, I was asked to go on the Claire Byrne show 2 weeks ago to talk about dress sense in the European Parliament. Oh. Are they not interested in the environment? Are they not interested in the challenges that the people of Ireland and Europe are facing, and what we're trying to do on that?
It shouldn't matter.
Obviously, they're more interested in talking about something as ridiculous as dress sense.
And you'll obviously continue to stand on that when you go to the European Parliament, like there would be.
In actual fact, if you want to know about it, right, the dress sense in the European Parliament is far more relaxed than at all.
Is it?
And no one would blink at you. I wore, in the warm weather, I wore sleeveless t-shirts
you couldn't wear
a few times.
In the warm weather.
I wore sleeveless t-shirts. No one would blink an eyelid.
No.
It's what I was comfortable in, and no one minded. And fellas going in there with three-piece suits, and you know what? In the Dáil, some people would frown upon you for not dressing as well as some people perceive one should dress. But in Europe, I see very little of that. There's much more. There's a far better attitude in Europe towards us.
I think their culture is just laid back, isn't it?
Well, it's more open-minded.
Yeah.
That's the word.
Easy.
Open-minded.
Yeah.
And you need to be open-minded about these things. And people who have these perceived notions as to how things should be, telling other people how they should live their lives, telling other countries how they should live their lives. Get a break.
Yeah.
Get a life.
Exactly. So where is it from now then? You've a lot of travelling. Do you find it, have you a fear of missing out on your children growing up or your family? Or?
Well, I'll be dead honest with you, right? I came home this weekend to see my mother and to see my 2 grandchildren. That's the reason I came home. And I haven't been home for a month for different reasons, right? I've, you know, sometimes political stuff at weekends in Europe. I was at some football in Italy. I stayed in Brussels.
And then you come home and you spend all the time with your mother and your kids.
Oh, I don't
and
know.
your
I don't.
grandkids,
I mean, but I see them. I don't. I probably see less of my mother than the rest of the children.
Yeah.
I'm probably the worst. But.
Are you the prodigal son then, though?
Oh, I'm not. No, I was the black sheep.
And the grandkids, is it true what they say that the grandkids are the apple of your eye? Then there's nothing like a grandkid to.
I don't know. I'm still very close to my 4 kids, and
you're not allowed to say it here.
they're the centre of my life. My 4 children, and now my grandchildren. So that's the most important thing in life.
And are you happy for all them to go into politics, or would you try and steer them clear of it? Or?
I'm doing whatever the hell I like.
Yeah.
I won't steer them anyway. There's no steering on them anyway. I or no one else is going to tell them what to do.
They mightn't have lifted off the ground either.
Yeah, there could be a streak of independence in some,
Yeah. So you're interested in soccer then, obviously, getting the lads to wear pink, and you're interested in managing and coaching. And I've seen a video how they're very positive towards you and they have a lot to thank you for. Where did your interest come from?
When we were very small kids, my older brothers were the ones who were interested in soccer first. My brothers, Paddy and Willie, and then Joseph, they were mad into soccer, so I was mad into it. And we just played soccer all the time in the yard.
Was there a lot of competition between you?
Oh yeah, we used to kill each other. We used to play into the coal house door, and 2 aside, right? Okay. And it used to be murder. Oh God,
your
murder.
Poor mother.
Yeah. In actual fact, I remember one time, I'll never forget it, but she was going into the coal house for coal, and she got struck with the ball, and she was pregnant at the time, right? And she took the ball and hit it and said, "You're not getting that back again. No more soccer in the yard." Right? Now we had it back before the end of the day, right? But she was some mad. But anyway, I always remember it, right? But no, listen. I mean, from the word go, I was really very fond of the game, and we started a local club at home, a group of us, called the Cork Ramblers, back in 1973, 74.
There was probably nothing like the facilities here today. Then,
oh, there wasn't. No. You talked out by the side of the ditch, and you didn't get a shower unless it rained. But we had a great time with the Cork Ramblers, and I was involved with them for years. I played soccer on and off for 20 years. I wasn't particularly good, but they reckon I was dangerous, all right.
You reckon your coaching
more dangerous than skillful. But listen, I enjoyed it no end.
Yeah.
And
is that what brought you into the coaching? If the skill wasn't great on the pitch, do you think?
Yeah, I was.
better leader?
I was a better coach and a better manager than I was a player, for sure. Yeah. Now, talking about soccer reminds me. I lost my best friend, Pat Whitty, who died of cancer a couple of years ago, and the two of us went to a lot of football together, and we did a lot of things together. But we were very, very much linked with soccer in Wexford, and with watching football as well at European level, and the two of us were incredibly passionate about it, and there was nowhere we'd rather be than in a football stadium watching live football. I'd rather watch whether it's in a stadium in Italy or whether it's at the Wexford Youths. I'd rather be watching the Wexford under-15s play here than and they're playing a Shield final here now for Wednesday night, in case this is shown before then. But live soccer, I just love live soccer.
Yeah.
So I'd rather watch the 15s here than watch television. But
as you said with your friend, you make great friendships at team sports, and somebody once said to me, you never realise the value of a moment until it becomes a memory. So I suppose these moments of the life games.
Yeah, I mean, we're all the sum of our experiences in life, and it's who we are. It's the experiences we've had and the memories that we carry from those experiences. You know,
it's very important.
It's what makes the individual. You know. You're obviously born with certain attributes that you inherit from your parents or whatever through the genes, but I firmly believe that we're the products of experience more than anything else.
Yeah. And coming up to the elections now, will there be a by-election or a general election in November, or who's going to take your seat?
There's a big difference between a by-election and a general election. And there probably will be a by-election at this stage.
When do you
Varadkar's missed the boat. He should have called a general election a year ago or 18 months ago.
Yeah.
He'd have been 100% sure of being the Taoiseach for 5 years afterwards.
Yeah.
Now, not so sure. The shine has gone off him. It was in his interest to go earlier, but anyway, he got carried away with himself and didn't. He doesn't really want a general election now, but neither does Micheál Martin.
Why is that,
the two of them are afraid of it. So it'll probably be held off until the summer. They'll use the excuse of Brexit as a reason for not having it again, as they have been using for about 18 months. But if there had been an election or not, it wouldn't have interfered with Brexit or the preparations for it.
No.
That was nonsense from my point of view. As to who would get elected in a general election and who would get elected in a by-election, it's completely different.
Yeah.
In a by-election, it's incredibly hard, for example, for an independent to win a by-election.
Yeah.
Especially if Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil are strong, right? And if there's a by-election, it can really only be won by the Fianna Fáil candidate or the Fine Gael candidate.
Yeah.
And I think Malcolm Byrne will stand for Fianna Fáil, Verona Murphy for Fine Gael. I think it'll be pretty close between them. I say Malcolm Byrne is favourite to win it.
He seems pretty popular, and he's from Gorey, from where I am, so he seems pretty popular up there.
Well, he'll do well in the north of the county. Verona Murphy will do well in the south of the county.
Yeah.
Malcolm could struggle in the south of the county. There won't be much between them. Verona's an able woman. I met her out in Brussels last week.
Yeah.
She's very capable now.
I think it's nice to see a woman go through as well.
I mean, I'm not going to start canvassing for the politics of Fine Gael or Fianna Fáil.
Yeah.
There's a pair of them in it, and but it will be very close between them.
Yeah. Do you think voters?
So if there's a general election, we might have a chance of holding the seat for Independence for Change. We'll watch that space. I won't say too much about it yet, but if there's a by-election now before Christmas or in January, it'll be a straight fight between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael.
Have you noticed the difference in how people vote over the years? I mean, obviously, maybe 30 years ago it would have been very different than to now in how people's opinions are, and the younger generations will be coming up. I think for my generation, it feels like we vote more for who we like and who we think is directly going to make a change rather than a party.
Yeah, there's more of that, but I can assure you there's still a strong party vote.
Yeah.
No matter what candidate certain parties will put up in certain areas, they'll get support from the party, even if the person isn't known.
Yeah.
That's still going on. And the people with your philosophy, sadly, too many of them are not voting.
Yeah, they need to get out there.
A third of the people in Ireland don't vote in a general election.
It's a massive number.
And the majority of them would not be Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour supporters.
No, they probably
so
won't be
in
independent.
actual fact, And in the last, excuse me,
God bless you.
in the last 2 general elections, 4 out of 5 under 26-year-olds didn't vote. Can you imagine how different the landscape could look if those young people voted?
Massive.
And the 1/3 that don't vote, if they actually voted, the difference that they could make and get rid of the same old Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour politics that has...
Well, the outdated kind of opinions that are just too old for us now. Like, there would be a lot of people that probably still vote that didn't want abortion, that maybe didn't want condoms back in the day. Like, that was only 30 years ago, so...
Yeah, but listen, I mean, Ireland was a very different place in the past, and it's evolving. And listen, there's a lot of reasons for that. The fact that we were an island was a big factor. We were insular. We hadn't enough contact with countries around us. We weren't sharing borders. And obviously the Catholic Church had a huge impact, a very conservative impact on the country. We won't get into the pluses and negatives of it, but obviously it's well acknowledged now that they did a lot of harm. Sure, there was plenty of people that worked in the church that did a lot of good too.
Yeah.
But Ireland is evolving from that place, and Ireland will be very different in 10 years' time than it is today.
It'll be interesting to see where it leads.
Yeah. No, I'd be optimistic that Ireland will be a better country in 10 years' time. I think it'll be better organised. But it probably won't happen until we move away from the 3 established parties.
Yeah.
I think that's imperative.
What do you think will happen now with Brexit coming up? Will it happen? Will it not happen? Will it?
Listen, I mean, if the British don't know what's going to happen, if they don't know what they want, if they don't know where the ball's going to land, it's very hard for us to know. I mean, I wouldn't be critical of the government in any manner on the Brexit issue, because they've been literally trying to deal with the unknown.
Yeah.
It's really the whole decision-making process is completely in the hands of the British.
Yeah.
And we just won't know until it happens. And you can speculate all you like. Obviously, it certainly looks like it will happen, but it's not impossible that it won't.
Will it cause a ruckus in the north?
It'll be pretty dramatic in the early days, but I do think it will settle down and find its own level quicker than people realise.
It won't be like years ago.
I don't think there'll be a return to violence. I've been involved in prisons a lot in Ireland, north and south. I know a lot of the guys behind bars that were involved in distant IRA and real IRA activity. I don't believe that they have enough grassroots support to make a big impact again. No. I don't think there'll be a return to violence. Brexit will have a big impact, if it happens, on different sectors of people in Ireland, and it'll be problematic for a period. But business is business, and business will be done, and deals will be done, and things will find their own level quicker than people are saying, in my opinion. Yeah.
And one last question. Do you have an opinion on Trump? Or do you feel like his impeachment should go ahead at the moment? Or he's done any good?
No, listen, Trump isn't doing any good, right? But neither did the fellow before him, Obama. And Trump arrived because Obama and the Democrats and Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton failed the American people.
Yeah.
And they voted for an absolute nut in Trump. And Boris Johnson's arrival in Britain is also a symbol of the fact that politics does not represent the people well. I would argue that the Brexit vote, people said that, it was run by mad nationalists harping back to the days of British Empire. And then, it was also anti-immigrant. In actual fact, I reckon the biggest element of the Brexit vote, and this is why it was such a shock and so unexpected, was that a whole lot of poor people that don't normally vote came out and voted and said, "Yous want us to vote, yes, we're going to vote no, to hell with yous. Yous don't represent us, and we're going to vote no." And to me, it was a reflection on how poorly so many people, less well off, feel that they are just not represented by politics.
There's a poor communication.
They felt that they weren't represented by politics in Europe, that they weren't represented by politics in London. And the EU has a big challenge, because since Nice and since the Lisbon treaties, the European community, the European Union has developed into what I would call a neoliberal club, where the interest of big business is paramount.
Yeah.
The big business has been running Europe for a while now, and that if the European project is going to survive, and I want it to survive, but it has to change.
It's a major effect of the US multinationals coming in as well, isn't it?
It is. The trajectory that Europe is on is not sustainable, and it has to change. And it has to go back to representing the 500 million people that it's supposed to represent, rather than represent big business.
Yeah.
And that has to be challenged and dealt with in a holistic fashion, because everything is connected.
Yeah, it's not going to be done overnight either, but
no,
it's a massive undertaking.
But Rome wasn't built in a day either, but it was started one day.
Yeah.
So Europe needs to start, and it hasn't started yet.
And that's what you're going to do, is it?
Well, we're certainly going to try.
Thank you very much for talking to me, Mick.
No problem.